story is, this was back in late 2010. Now, in 2009, I had relocated to Johannesburg, South Africa. I had been headhunted for the position of news anchor, reporter, and producer by ETV. The division was E! News Africa. And the idea was that they were trying to galvanize a very Pan-African presence leading up towards the 2010 World Cup and beyond. I had pitched a couple of feature story ideas to the team that I thought would be interesting to come out of Kenya, namely Nairobi and Mombasa. Mombasa, I remember that we were focusing on prostitution among young girls, which is still so heartbreaking and something that is still very prevalent. And in Nairobi, at the time, we were featuring the families of victims of Philip Onyancha's crimes. I don't know if you remember Onyancha, and the time when he came out, he was being called Kenya's Dracula or vampire, and he was a serial killer who really carried out gruesome crimes that included sucking the blood of his victims, allegedly. So that's what I found. I thought it would be interesting to just get an idea of that story. So we finally identified a man who had said that his son was allegedly one of the victims. And so the first order of business was to go and pay respects to the son's grave, which was really sad, and we just gave him a minute to do that. And then after that was to go to his home for him to just tell us a little bit about his son, meet his wife. I don't remember his name, neither of the victim or the father or of the mother, but I do remember that we went to Lenana. Deep in the heart of Lenana is where we went to capture his story. So it was a little late by the time we were going to do his story. And we had requested for some security because we had very expensive equipment coming out of South Africa, and it was quite a fair bit of it. And so we had, I believe it was just one person, and then we had a cab. So myself and the videographer, we were the only two people who had come from South Africa to do this story. We get to Lenana, and we went first to do a recce of this is the spot where he was found. And we said, okay, so we need to go there, do a piece to camera, which if you're not familiar, that's the point when the reporter turns to the camera to give sort of like an outro or an outtake of the scenario on location. So we said with the videographer, let's do our piece to camera here. But in the meantime, let's go leave the equipment that we don't need in the car, and you go and get the story of the family as I take some cutaways. So we said, okay, let's go and get to know the family a bit better so that we can prep them for the story. In the meantime, me as the videographer, I will take cutaways of the forest and everything. So I went ahead with this man to his home. He was like, yeah, actually come for tea. At this time, it's about 6 p.m. It's getting quite late. No, it was 5 p.m. Sorry, it was 5 p.m. He was very nice about it. He said, come, have tea, meet the family. And he said, you know what, I need to actually get you guys extra security because this place is very unsafe. So he's like, let me call some security guys I know. So there was one or two people who, by the time I was leaving my videographer there was about a group of 4 people, and they seemed really legit. They were like, yes, we understand. We were told you're coming to film. We're here to make sure that everything is safe, everything is fine. I said, okay, great, thank you. So let me just go. And the distance was very short. It was almost like from Lonro House to Nation Media House. It's a walking distance. It's near but far. So that was kind of the distance. So I went, settled into the house at about 5:15, sat, got to know the family. I remember there was a mother, a father, and I think I vaguely remember 2 daughters, a bit young, in their preteens. And they were just like, oh, ilikuwa ngumu sana, unajua, hatukumwona ile siku, alafu alitoka, alafu, it was they were really just kind of sharing these last moments. And we talked and talked. And remember, I'm waiting for the videographer to come and film us. I'm just prepping the family. So another 10 minutes pass, then 15, then 20, then 30. And I'm like, what is going on? Why hasn't he come back? By this time, it's almost 6. And I'm like, we need to go check what's happening. So the man who had led us to the house, the father of the house, the father of the alleged victim, says, let me go check and just make sure that they're okay. So he leaves the house to go check. I'm continuing having my tea. I think by this time we're just watching a bit of TV. And then 10 minutes later, he runs into the home saying, wameibiwa, haya, gari imeenda. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? And he's basically saying, your videographer and the driver and the security detail, they've all gone. And I'm hearing that they were robbed. I'm very confused. I'm in the middle of a place. I have no idea where I am. I just remember being so confused. And then I remember thinking, wait, is he okay? The videographer and the driver okay? Then I remembered my handbag is in the car, and it has my passport and my phone. That came later. But all these things, the way you have so many things swirling in your mind at the same time. But I remember locating a security person, somebody from the police station. And I remember it took about 30 minutes plus, maybe 40 minutes. By this time, it was almost 7 when they came to get me from this man's house. All this time, this man is panicking. He's like, oh my God, I don't know what's happened. They've just gone. And everyone is panicking. And I'm really panicking because did I even have my phone? I had my phone with me. I had nothing else. My bag, I had left it in the car because I knew we were going to film and finish. And then this policeman comes and picks me. And I'm frazzled. I'm like, I don't know where my colleagues are. Or my colleague is, but I know the colleague and the cab guy are together and they've been robbed, and apparently there's other people with them. And so we tried to trace using my phone the policeman I was with. I remember there was 2 policemen and I was sandwiched in the middle of a police truck. So they say you need to come to the police station and record a statement. We drop you back at the hotel and we pursue. I said, okay. So I went, I recorded a statement, everything I could remember, went to the hotel and just started praying that the videographer was okay, the cab guy was okay. And then about an hour or two later, the videographer appeared and came to my hotel room. And I just remember jumping. I'm like, oh my God, you're alive. He's like, yes, but he was so visibly shaken. He didn't have his shoes. And he said, Janet, everything is gone. They took everything. And I said, but you're okay? He said, yeah, we're okay. They picked us up. And he said, Janet, this man that we were going to interview is behind this whole thing. He basically set us up. I said, what do you mean? He said, yeah, the men who he said were going to help look after our stuff are the ones who, the moment you got into the house, 10 minutes later, they pulled out guns and forced us into the cab, dropped us off. I think they were dropped off in Gong, if I'm not mistaken, Hazy, and then found a way to get help, and then found their way back to the hotel. And he said, yeah, we were bound, but we were not gagged. We were thrown out of the car. All the equipment was taken. Your handbag was taken. And then they left. And I just remember bursting out crying. He started crying. It was just, we were so shaken. And, I just said, look, you're okay. You're alive. Whatever, the bags, everything that was there can be replaced, but we can't continue with our stories. And all that footage, we had come from Mombasa. We had come from filming the story of these women, of these young prostitutes, and all of that footage, everything gone. So I went back to the police station the next day and I said, listen, that man whose house you picked me from set us up. He's conned us. Basically got into cahoots with all these guys, realized that we were coming with expensive equipment. So it almost sounds like everybody from the authorities that gave us the license to film, to the security detail that we had asked for, to his neighborhood, knew that there are people coming from South Africa with expensive equipment and we need to make a killing. By the way, that equipment was probably worth about $500,000. So yeah, pretty expensive. And then the strange thing is, I just remember the police, they just took the statement and said, we'll investigate. And I said, no, I want to go to his house. I want to confront him. They said, you can't do that. That's our job. Once we told our employers, they said, just get on the first plane back. I said, actually, I just want to go back to Mombasa and be with my family and grieve, or just get over the shock of the fact that I was in a criminal's home and we were set up. My colleague flew out, I think, the next night, and they said, don't worry about the equipment. You guys are alive. You're fine. And I just remember thinking to myself, wait, you can be set up in a way that it's so tactful